Hey everyone, we're going to take a quick break and talk about our sponsors for the month, AAMP Agency. AAMP is a full-service digital marketing agency that specializes in tour, rental, and destination marketing.
We would not have sponsors on the show if we could not vouch for them ourselves. AAMP Agency does a bunch of stuff for Destiny Water Adventures personally. I 100% vouch for this guy. I've handed them over to other companies in the past before they officially became a sponsor, and they have had nothing but great things to say. If you guys are doing your own marketing and doing a piss poor job of it, do yourselves a favor. Hand yourselves over to AAMP Agency, specifically Steve Edwards, their CEO, will call you personally and have a great conversation with you about what you guys need to do for your marketing.
Listen, guys, they do pretty much everything in digital marketing. Website development, maintenance, Google AdWords, PPC, graphic design, social media management, SEO, and a myriad of other things. When you choose a marketing company, it's so important to choose a company that knows your industry. And AAMP Agency knows activity marketing, especially water sports and tours. They got a promo going for Awkward Watersport Guy listeners for their managed websites. Use promo code Awkward Podcast when you go to amp.agency. Again, that's amp.agency, promo code Awkward Podcast. You get 3 months free and get started with AAMP Agency. All right, guys, let's get back to the show.
All right. Welcome to another fine episode of the Awkward Watersports Guys podcast. We are here today with Alex Benko from wondrous. wondrous, TripShock. I mean, you got a whole list of things after you. So wondrous and TripShock, as well as he's got a software company. Alex is a regular tech genius. Alongside of him is an Awkward Watersports Guy favorite, Steve Edwards from the AAMP Agency, as well as TakeMyBoatTest.com. Everybody just got strings of companies after their names, including my main Kimosabi, Greg Fisher. Man, how the fuck are you guys doing?
Good. It feels like a Wednesday. That's a Wednesday.
Man, it feels like a Monday to me. You know why? Because every day I wake up on Monday, I'm like, let's fucking get this, man. I'm so excited. Every Monday.
Why? Have you already played Call of Duty for the day? Taken a nap? Gone to the gym? I mean, how many minutes of real work have you done this week?
A lot, man. I'm fucking 5
hours. Hours. You recognize I didn't ask hours. Just minutes, right? Like, how many minutes this week?
Does podcasting work?
No.
Does podcasting count?
Could you pay your mortgage with your podcast income? That's a hard no. So
negative $1. Literally tens, possibly hundreds of minutes I've spent working.
Tens of hundreds of dollars have been made from this podcast.
All right, so we brought these fine feathered fucking weirdos to. We're going to talk about GA4. If you're not into acronyms, that stands for Google
Grand Theft Auto 4.
This is great. This is where we switch roles, where you jump in and say funny stuff, and I have to handle all the heavy intellectual lifting. So I'm maxing at about 8 pounds of heavy intellectual lifting, and that's a deadlift. Alex knows something about that. But anyway, we're going to talk about Google Analytics 4, and Steve and Alex are sort of resident experts on this stuff, or they're big tech guys. So, man, how are you guys doing? It's a Wednesday. I know I sort of already asked that. Alex, how are you doing today, buddy?
Pretty good. Excited. I wanted to ask you about, how you feel about Fridays. Some people are looking forward to Fridays. I actually look forward to Mondays for some reason. Because like you said, I'm excited about doing the shit I do every day. And Monday is like a holiday for me.
I feel the same way. I'm really excited. Wake up on Monday morning. I'm like, all right, this is going to be fun. We got so much to do.
In your case, you never stop working, right? So Monday is like, any other day.
So, yeah, I'm not going to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I'm going to take the contrarian on it. I know every entrepreneur in the world is supposed to be excited for Monday. Lately, I'm pretty excited for Friday. So, this week as well, still excited for Friday.
It's because you're a raging alcoholic and you're like, you get out at noon. So you're like, I could start drinking at 12:15.
That is the furthest from the truth.
He calls me on Monday morning and he's just like, is today the day that I check into the hospital for alcohol withdrawals?
That's not even a good joke because I rarely drink.
I know.
And now you're gonna have people thinking that I'm like this alcoholic. Like, for the record, I hardly ever drink.
Yeah, it's 100% true. So those of you guys who don't know, like Steve and I are pretty tight buddies, and we talk a lot of shit to each other. It's pretty much like Steve and I will log almost as much time on the phone as Greg and I do. And so Steve and I mostly just talk shit to each other like 24/7. So this is just an extension of that. Disclaimer, spoiler, Steve is actually not a raging alcoholic. I just thought it would be funny to say that he was. Yeah, I'm saying, dude, unfortunately, like, I look forward to Saturdays and Sundays because not that I'm not like working, but because Saturdays and Sundays, my I don't have to like deal with getting my kids off to school because the routine in my house is that my wife takes the baby to daycare and then I get my 7-year-old off to the bus stop. So I look forward to the weekends. I'm weird, man. Like my whole life is a weird amalgam of everything. Like, so I'll work and then I'll stop working and then I work, go to the gym, but then I'm answering emails and like I do all the stuff that the book says you shouldn't do. Like I have a weird kind of balance, but it's like, I mean, Sunday night something might strike me and I'm like, oh, gotta do this. Like, I mean, you know, I was writing an email to FWC on Sunday night. So I'm really bad about just being like a whole blender of shit. You know, I'll try. I know Greg's like Sundays is like family time, but it's hard, man. I want to call him and talk about the show or text him about the conference or something. And yeah, it just, my brain is just running 24/7. So I'm excited about any day that ends in Y. Oh.
Hey, here's a observation I made the other day. So being based in Vegas, we have CES, and CES just wrapped up on Sunday. So I try to go to CES every year. I think it's super cool. It's pretty.
What is CES?
The Consumer Electronics Show. So it's changed over the last couple of years. So back in the day, it used to be you would go and you would just look at new TVs that are coming out and new speakers. And it was kind of, I don't know, very consumerish electronics, which is the acronym, right? But now when you go, it's like they have all the, you know, self-driving car automations and AI and digital printing. And I mean, it's grown into a way bigger like tech stack than what most are used to. But the weird observation, and it's just obviously not being around the culture or seeing it, but this is the first year that CES actually fell on a Saturday and Sunday. And it was actually really surprising to me how many booths were closed on Saturday for, what is it, Shabbat? Excuse me for not being super fluent
Sabbath?
in my, yeah, there we go. For Jewish Day of Rest, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I actually I get recognizing your religion. I couldn't believe that they were actually like closed on the CES floor. I mean, huge booths like Monster Cable and, you know, huge companies had their entire trade show booth closed due to
the Sabbath.
I was like, that's pretty wild. I mean, it cost them, you know, a fortune to have a booth there. So to think that they were going to close down one of the 4 days that the show was going on is.
Did they have any sex robots there?
They actually did. They had. Well, I sent you the one. So the funniest thing that I saw when we were walking around, it wasn't a sex robot, but it was a tool to help a guy masturbate himself off. I'm like,
yeah. I was like, send me 3.
I'm like, who actually needs that? I mean, is that not like the epitome of laziness? If you just actually need a tool that you're going to put beside your penis, and you're just going to like, this will do it. I got it.
Yeah, you're like Chat GPT. I was telling Steve, Greg, that's my business idea. It's going to actually be 1-800 GPT, and then AI comes to life.
So stupid.
CUNS.
He's the only one I know that would want to chat with a robot sexually.
And you just have to like constantly keep on feeding it prompts because it keeps on like coming back. You're like, jerk me off, Chat GPT, and then it's like, you are a jerk, and like, no, I mean masturbate me. I am masturbating you. No, Chat GPT. And in the vein of Robert Frost. I think, not Robert Frost masturbating you, but being at least poetic about the way it talks to you on my 1-800-CHAT-GPT line.
All right, so we talked about penises, sex dolls, all sorts of things. Let's talk about Google Analytics.
Robots, sex robots.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, of all the things we could talk about, Google Analytics 4 is probably the most painful one of them all. I would sooner talk about sex robots.
Yeah, let's just talk about Chat GPT. Oh, and I got another one. Chad GPT. So Chad GPT is your surfer friend that's like, hey, bro. I hope my buddy Chad listens to this because he sounds like his name is Chad. He's like, Kevin, what's up, dude? I'm like, man, your parents really named you the right name, Chad. Chad, when we were Captain Chad of Salty Bottom Charters. I'll give him a shout out if I'm going to give him a hard time. But yeah, so GA4, man, like what's the deal, guys?
Well, wait. So let's start with something obvious, right? What do we need analytics for? Period, right? So what do we use analytics for, and why do we need them?
Well, if you're like 90% of the people that are listening, they're not using their analytics anyways, nor are they looking at it. So
this is why you don't get invited to the sales presentation, Steve.
100%. Google Analytics. I think I got access to that Google Analytics thing. Let me see if I can get in there.
Or can I answer it? I use it for obviously a plethora of things, but if I had to reduce it down to its lowest common denominator, I would probably say for data accrual, and then obviously with that data, like every decision that I make regarding marketing, budgeting for ad spend, obviously almost all of our decisions are made by our analytics data.
So basically it helps you drive your business decisions, right? Make them. It drives
on the decision-making side, yeah.
And at the same time, you can test new things. Like you can run an A/B test and see what analytics shows you. You know, if you have a crazy idea that you need to test out, obviously there's only one way to find out if it works or not is by analyzing the data, right, that you collected through analytics. Yeah. Cool. So, what do you guys know about GA3? Why do you think Google needs to move to GA4? And I'd like to hear your views on that.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the show so far. We want to take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, Conversion Assist. Conversion Assist is an app that helps you get more bookings, improve customer experience, automate reviews, and make your staff more efficient. And for you Fair Harbor users, it can integrate directly into your system for a streamlined experience.
Yeah, I worked with Dustin and PPC Pros, and then right before actually Conversion Assist, he actually beta tested it with us, and it was like off the wall. The amount of reviews that we got was so awesome. And I got to see Conversion Assist before he actually launched it, and it's pretty neat. It puts together all of your different communication and chat bots that you have, from Facebook Messenger to your website to all the different types of channels that people can reach out to you, and it keeps it all together in one like seamless integrated application. Dustin himself is also extremely accessible, and he's always a great wealth of knowledge. I think Conversion Assist looks super neat, and it definitely did awesome for us.
Dustin is not only a great member of the AWG community, but he's also a tour operator himself. To learn more, head to conversionassist.me to book a demo today. That's conversionassist.me, not .com. Make sure to let them know that Greg and Kevin sent you from the AWG podcast. Now let's get back to the show.
My view. Well, I have an opinion. Obviously, so Universal Analytics was really built off actions taken on, and you had to set up all of those actions, where now I know this GA4 is really event-based and it tracks a lot more events. I also know that it gets away from cookies, which is a big piece of the Google component. Google wants to do away on the privacy side of having everything cookied like it has. So this is a big piece. I think in the bigger picture, GA4 is a supposed to be a better product, but it is, remarkably close to GA4 supposed to be rolling out for a lot of platforms in our industry. What is it? July 1st is when they stop, or June 31st is when they stop tracking data with Google Analytics or Universal Analytics. And there's only a couple platforms that I know of in the market right now that are fully switched over to GA4. And when I've spoken to a lot of like the developers or, the guys that are on the tech side of these platforms, and everybody is kind of doomsdaying the shit out of this because GA4 is far more complicated and way less intuitive than Universal Analytics.
I agree. And also one thing they're doing is they're limiting their data storage. So in the old days, you could basically have access to unlimited storage and basically keep history indefinitely. But now you only have two options, 2 months or 14 months. And then if you want to retain more data, beyond 14 months, you have to move it to a paid service. So I think it's also a way for Google to make more money. They're helping us making things, more sophisticated, but at the same time, they're going to be charging you for that.
Alex, I have a question for you.
Sure.
In your estimation, will GA4 be as robust as, or Universal Analytics GA4? Will that be as robust as Universal Analytics?
Yeah, I think so. It's probably going to be even better.
I think with it's going to be way better. But yeah. I mean, I don't know if anybody, I've spent a fair amount of time in GA4. We have a couple clients that are using platforms that have made the switch to GA4 completely. A handful of us on the team have all gone through and done our GA4 certification, which is quasi a joke. It's a lot. It feels so much less informative or intuitive than what you're used to in Universal. Universal Analytics used to be able to really find what you were looking for. You could drill down pretty easily. If you needed to put a report together, it had all the information you needed. It seemed like it made a lot of sense. So to me, this feels like so stepping backwards. But I'll say on the plus side, a lot of the events are already put together once you put it in. You don't have to go and create a lot of the different events or the goals that you had to with Universal Analytics. I don't know. It'll be very interesting. I think it's one of those things where it's got all the greatest intentions. I think there's going to be a lot of pain in the months of July and August when people are still backpedaling and haven't made the switch and they don't have their shit together. They don't have the tracking in place. And, my whole business is built off of conversion tracking and understanding what's working. So I've been kind of, on the front side of this. I really wanted to understand what was happening and how it worked. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't have my doubts and or questions about how this looked. I've even looked for third-party software that provides a better tracking solution, and I feel like I'm caught between a rock and a hard place right now.
Yeah, I think that's highly concerning, especially for those of us in the industry that have to cobble together our websites with ResTech. And the reporting is already usually skewed or not 100% accurate or entirely up to date between what happens from your OTAs, between what your Fair Harbor reporting or your Peak Pro reporting, Wave Res reporting, and then that because the sale technically happens on those sites, not on your site. So we had an incredibly difficult time making sure that everything was tracking properly. And then even, this is how we hired Steve actually a couple of years back. He came on the show and gave me a hard time about my phones because that wasn't properly reporting. So as an operator, it's definitely highly concerning that we've had all of these problems just making the connection with Universal Analytics because the sales, the e-com's not happening directly on our site. So you're sort of getting this semi half-baked reporting going on. So for us, I know for certain we're going to definitely not be looking at, we're going to have to maybe, if there's a problem or a lapse in the actual reporting of the revenue, that's going to make us more dependent on the reservation tech and the reporting and the reservation tech to have a true report that accurately depicts cost of acquisition and, where all of our sales are coming from.
I mean, I think that fear is a little preemptive. I mean, we've got a solid, 6-7 months before before the switch happens. And I mean, it would be an absolute miss for obviously the big elephant in the room, a Fair Harbor, right? Fair Harbor hasn't really talked about how they're rolling up GA4, how they're integrating it yet. There's no way that Fair Harbor isn't having somebody in their ear about this, and they're not sorting this out as we speak.
What's WaveRes doing? What are you guys doing?
So I want to take for WaveRes. You talked about like the cross-domain tracking issues between the ResTech and the website. Kevin, we talk about this all the time on the show about how the reporting doesn't transfer over. We have actually solved that for WaveRes. It's in production, or it's in development right now. So that way, when basically if you get a click to your website and then the customer makes a booking on the ResTech, all that data is stitched together. So you will actually see that on your conversion reports.
Hey guys, this is Kevin from Awkward Watersports Guys breaking in. This show is sponsored by WaveRes. For all your detailed reporting needs and accurate connections, see Greg at WaveRes. Talk about a soft sell, motherfucker. I love it though, man. I mean, shit.
It's an issue that we talk about, and I went to Alex and Luke, and I'm like, guys, why isn't this being solved? So we're in development on that, and I'm pretty excited.
It was actually even better than that, because Greg is like, we have this issue. Here's a solution. Implement.
That's awesome.
He literally showed us a freaking solution. We have to. People are like, "Oh, it's impossible to do."
But I think the concern is when you start talking about guys that are spending, $500,000 a year in Google AdWords and not being able to understand attribution. I mean, so the scary part on the ad or on the agency side is we are all pretty tech involved, right? Like, you guys are on a software company. I own a marketing agency. We're supposed to be looking at this stuff. But the scary thing is how many clients or how many operators that we're looking at their stuff that literally don't have any of it set up. So, I mean, we could just be talking about launching rockets. This is Elon Musk stuff we're talking about right now. And people are like, oh my God, tracking. Why would I track? It's crazy to me how many people don't actually set up their analytics.
I was reading up on some of the GA4 benefits, just going more granular. So some of the measurements out of the box is going to be scrolling, outbound link clicks, document link clicks, and website searches, meaning you'll be able to have more of these measurements without getting a dev involved. Because like, your example in GA3, we had to get our developers to do a hell of a lot of work to pipe in data, so we can visualize everything. So you're going to get...
The reason for that is because we have a lot of custom events and they're kind of weird. But again, if you want to be extremely granular with how you collect data and analyze it, you have to create custom events, right? Because you can't really do everything out of the box. Unless you're running like a vanilla WordPress website, then you just install a plugin, create a new property, populate it, and that's it. But if you have actual shit happening, if you have a lot of sales, then you do need to have custom events. So maybe Greg can, get deeper into details on.
Well, I mean, some of the problems we have right now is, let's say that we have a 404 page. Well, I look at our reports and I see 404 pages, and I say, where in the hell are these people coming from with these that are hitting these 404 pages? And you only get a piece of data sometimes to let you know, to give you maybe an idea of where that data come from, especially if it's like a previous path. It does appear that GA4 is going to have some more robust reporting features, so you can identify, where these clicks are coming from, so you can make fixes to those links and whatnot. That I think this is a great positive. Getting more information about outbound link clicks, how many times people have clicked those outbound link clicks and things like that. That's like out of the box stuff that you don't necessarily have to find and set up.
So I want to talk to the side, and I think Steve was like getting ready to touch on it before I had a really great joke that I had to interject. But I think like Steve was getting to like, what does this mean to the average operator? And yes, to his point, tracking your spending, that's one piece of it. But there's so much, like, even if you're listening to this and you're going like, well, I didn't use Universal Analytics or GA4, I don't fucking use any of it, like my one time I said, I was talking to Ben and we were talking about marketing when I first met him, and we were talking about like SEO or something or ad spend or something like that. And then he just looks at me, he goes, I know the words Google Analytics. And that's like, I mean, that was the extent of it. He couldn't log into his analytics. He didn't know where to find analytics. He knew those two words went together. And this is like sort of a lot of operators, right? They keep their hands off their marketing. Yeah. They don't give a shit. They pay Steve, they pay America, they pay Dustin, all the sponsors of our shows.
They don't pay anybody else.
Well, they pay their marketers and they don't think about it. And it's like, to Steve's, like, ever, when we talk, and he never bitches about his clients at all over at AAMP Agency. But I mean, when he's just like,
every single one of them.
And he does. He's just like, God, I just wish these guys would fucking pay more attention to what's happening in their business. Well, analytics gives you this whole breadth of information. Where are your customers coming from? Who are your ideal customers? Who is making the booking? And if you can't sit down and creatively think about solutions to their problems, like, what are you even fucking in business for? Like, I don't even understand this ideology. It's just like, oh, I just, want to get home and collect all the money. Well, it's great. Well, the money's never going to come if you don't know how to properly communicate with your customers. And how can you properly communicate with your customers when you fucking have no idea who they are? You can go into Google Analytics, you can look at all the data, and you can say, here's where my customers are coming from. Here's how old they are. Here's when they're coming. Here's when they're interested. And you can curate messages and content nonstop to your ideal customer demographic. And you know what that's going to result in? All the piles of money.
So, guys, here's a generic question for you. As business owners, do you think it's absolutely necessary for a business owner to have certain knowledge of analytics? Yeah. And if that's the case, what's the best way for them to get into it?
Analytics for Dummies, YouTube video.
Get the certification.
Yeah, they don't need all that. I mean, some of that Google Analytics side where you're getting deep in the rabbit hole, like even the stuff we're talking about, people's eyes glaze over. Like, I mean, it's
so boring.
Yeah, it's so super unexciting. It's like, oh, tell me something more interesting. Like, they would sooner talk about the jet pumps on Yamaha jet skis. This is the stuff that makes their eyes glaze over and they check out. I don't think they need to get too in the rabbit hole. I think they need to have a high-level understanding of being able to go to their analytics and understand where their customers are coming from, what channels are working, what that customer kind of looks like. Like, if you're in Northern Florida, is that customer driving over from, are they coming from Tennessee? Are they coming over from Alabama? Like, where is that customer coming from? Or are they calling you or searching you from New York, planning their trip down there? Like, how does that customer find you? And what actions are they taking when they visit your website? Beyond that, I think is like digital marketer type stuff. That's the stuff where you need an agency and where it starts to like get granular. And that's where like my job comes in, because I want to understand and I need to understand how your ads work in different markets and where we should be optimizing for. But I think it's like the people that, to me, analytics is the same as the guy that builds a website and then he never checks it, right? He never goes to his website, or he doesn't check his website once a week, once a month to just make sure it's up, right? Make sure that the wheels haven't fallen off, or that, it's none of this is set it and forget it. And that's the unfortunate part, is like, you do have to keep a pulse on your business. And to do that, analytics is a really good way.
The perfect thing to do right now is after the show, download the analytics app on your phone. And there's just real quick reports on there. What I like the most about it is the real time. So you can actually see who's on your website in real time. And I look at that real time daily for, Alex and I have a security app, and I look at it daily. And the reason why is because I want to see what pages people are on. And if I'm looking at it every day, then I can start seeing kind of a visual representation. Okay, I know, people are frequenting this page. I don't need to look at a report necessarily to see that a lot of people are visiting this page. Are people spending a lot of time on our checkout? If I'm noticing that, like I'm looking in real time and people are on the plan page or the sign up page for minutes, maybe something's wrong with that page. So these are just like very high level observations, but at least I'm watching it and I'm seeing the different pages. I'm kind of getting an idea of what people are doing on my website. And then I can go and see what else, because Google Analytics on the app, they have a lot of pre-made reports to tell you like what's going on.
Well, that is, I sort of want to take that and I know I'm going to kind of contradict Steve on getting the analytics certification side part of it, but the thing is that so I got Google Analytics certified too. I got them printed out. I fucking put them on my wall. I'm like, I'm a doctorate, I'm like the Dr. Google. It is incredibly boring, incredibly dry, but where it helps is when Steve wants to talk to me about something, like something that's happening on my website, I know what those columns are. I don't look and I go, well, what's a bounce rate? What's time on page? Like, I understand all that stuff. So if I have a particular idea that I want to drive home in my marketing, well, it's like I don't have a ton of time. Like, I'm not going to sit there, and I'm not a marketing specialist, but I can make an educated decision because I do know what those things, at least what I feel are the most important things relative to my business. Some of that stuff is not going to apply to my brick and mortar business at all. So, but to go through, just so you basically have an understanding, you can look at the whole scope of what Google Analytics can do. And then you can say, well, this applies to me, this applies to me, this doesn't apply to me. So when I'm going to make this decision on my website, my content, whatever, here's what we want to fix. Like Steve and I literally sat down and we sort of went through this. Now, because I'm not on Google Analytics all the time, he had to kind of help me and walk me through, but we're speaking the same language. It might be a little bit of broken English on my side, but I definitely understand what he's laying down. So I think you should go sit down and at the very least, do the YouTube video thing to answer your question, Alex. But I like the getting certified in Google Analytics. So what about you? What did you do? Where's your whole dog in this fight, Alex? We didn't really, I don't think you've ever been on the show, so there's no background. So, unfortunately, we've gone through all this and we talked about this, but can you give us a little background on yourself? What exactly 100% do you do for TripShock and WaveRes and how you got into all this?
Well, I primarily focus on the infrastructure. So, I love cloud technologies and network technologies, and basically that's what I primarily do for TripShock and all the other companies. I basically help set up the infrastructure, and then all the details are taken care of by the developers. I love picking new technologies. I review the services that we use in all of our companies at least every year, right? It's like if we're spending too much money on let's say a database, right? It's like, well, what other technologies can we use to drastically reduce the costs? Right now we're switching everything to serverless, and it's basically just on-demand, computers or servers that are being used only when we need to run a query or whatever. So basically we're not paying too much money keeping things running all the time. We only pay for the resources that we use whenever we need to use them. So that's kind of the basics of the cloud. With analytics in particular, I get involved in migrations like that. How do we do it the best way? Make sure
Alex, let me dial you back just a little bit. So what would you say if you had to put a title of your head? I'm assuming CTO or something like that. Would that be you?
A nice a-hole? No, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm really good at getting things done. So like I don't
Like a hitman.
Are you like Batman or something? Do you just not want to like tell us? Like
he's the fixer. He's the fixer.
You're like you do coding. You like do like you're like
my background is computer science. But I don't. Yeah, I don't really do any coding, even though I can write some basic, Python or Node.js, simple things.
And what's your belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu again?
I'm this close to brown. This my next promotion is going to be.
And he always wants to try and beat me up at the conferences. He's always trying to hurt me, and it drives me fucking crazy because it's like, it's like you're a computer science guy and you're a smart guy and you're analytics, so everything, you're like analyze everything. You're like, you know what? I'm just going to actually learn how to fight. Like rather than, I don't know your background, maybe you got in a lot of bar brawls. I got in a lot of bar brawls. I got my ass kicked quite a bit. Surprise, because I got a big mouth. And so you like go in and you're kind of like soft spoken, you got your glasses on, and you're like the whole intellectual thing going, and then you're like, hey, let's fight. And I'm like, I just don't think that's fair.
I say let's roll. There's a difference, right? Because rolling is what we call fighting.
It results in me getting hurt, and I'm all set on your very strange wrestling advances. So I don't know. Let's have like a boat driving competition, a parasailing competition. I'm really good at driving a parasail boat. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm a white belt, a shitty white belt, and I'm not good at all. And I can strike, but I know that once you get me on the ground, that it's like sort of like game over. So maybe some Western boxing. Maybe we'd go.
Hey, if you want a physical challenge, let's do push-ups next.
How about squats and deadlifts? And bench presses.
That's useless.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't. So we'll run like Olympics. This is what we're going to fucking do, Greg. I got it, man. I'm an idea guy. That's my Greg. I got tons of fucking ideas. You ask Greg and Steve. I got tons of them. So we'll do like an Olympics. We'll do like a water sport Olympics, man. We'll have wrestling. We'll have deadlifting. We'll have, I don't know, Steve.
I can swim.
What do you want to have? I
can swim and bike.
Or like a Pepsi challenge?
Yeah, I just want to see who can pound the most Diet Coke. I'm not interested in any of this stuff. You guys can have at it. I'm good.
I know. I saw you left the conversation. You're probably over there building a website, nerd.
I'm actually in Facebook Business Manager. Thank you. See, that's what we should talk about is how poorly Facebook and Google, social tracking and how that's all gone to hell and how, yeah.
Well, that's what it sort of feels like, right? So I hear what Alex is saying because with the GA4 thing, I just saw a notification that's like, make sure you switch over to GA4 in July of 2023, and this was how many ever months ago, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's like 20 years from now. I'll worry about that then. I didn't even think about it. I just thought it was just going to be like maybe an upgrade, and I wouldn't even think about it. But, I sort of feel like this is it, like a little bait and switch, right? Like Apple, Facebook, all these marketing platforms that are like, here you go. And then you're like hooked in and you're loving it. Like, oh man, I can't live without it. And they're like, we know. So now you're going to have to pay us more money.
Yeah. So years ago, Alex told me something. He said, when a software company releases something new, typically they have to give you something better because they're probably going to throw in a sales pitch. We do this with our security software. Every time we upgrade to the latest version, we're giving something nice to the free users, but we're also, putting some different pitch in there to get paid members because Google Analytics, I imagine that they're storing a ton of data and someone has to pay for that data. And Google's model, they like to get you hooked into their free services. And then over the course of some time, they start pitching you their cloud data storage and picture storage and whatever they want to sell you. They get you hooked into their ecosystem. So this is just a long time. I'm surprised Google My Business hasn't been monetized, more deeply. I think they did like a test of monetizing Google My Business, but I know one day that's going to turn too. So it's just a matter of time. And, I probably will go to Alex and say, hey, we got to probably pay to go back further. Like, I don't want just 12 months of data or whatever you guys mentioned. I need a lot.
Well, the reality of it is with, and this is just me spitballing here, but if like we all know that Microsoft is involved, like they're going to be rolling that Chat GPT out to Bing. The applications for AI are coming down the pipeline. So Google better give every fucking cash grab they possibly can, because I really think the future of search is about to drastically change.
I agree. So real quick, we haven't really addressed, do you have to change out the old Universal script on your website and replace it with the GA4 script?
Yeah, I think you do, because now it's a different tag. You got to replace that G tag. Yeah, it's a G tag now instead of that old Universal script.
Okay, that's important to know. So yeah, you're listening. Make sure you get your marketing company and make that switch over. Otherwise, will it sunset in July? Meaning that if you don't have it, then you will just not track anymore?
If you don't have it, you're not going to collect any data. So here's another important thing, right? So if you want to compare year over year in GA4, you have to have BigQuery set up in Google, right? And for BigQuery, it's pretty complicated for us. It's basically just a gigantic database where you can store all the data that's older than 14 months, right? And then that's the only way for you to look back, farther than 14 months. So that's a little bit more complicated than just switching, from GA3 events to GA4 events, right? I think any developer can do that. But setting up BigQuery and, making sure everything gets populated properly is a little bit more involved. Yeah. So you need a database.
For those who use WordPress, my guess is there's a plugin that will handle all that.
Yeah, WordPress is
so,
Yeah, the new Google Site Kit is actually a pretty slick little plugin. It works pretty well. It was wonky at first, but we've actually kind of switched a lot of our clients to using that Google Site Kit plugin. Because it integrates directly with your Google and it installs both right from the start. It installs your GA4 and your Universal, and it also connects to Search Console.
Greg, but one of the things that we do all the time, in all of our companies, is that we can compare this year with last year, right? And it's not going to be as easy in GA4 because the data will be physically gone, right? Unless you move it to BigQuery.
Yeah.
So you got to keep that in mind.
Google going to make a lot of money on this.
Absolutely.
They need it. They're going broke, I hear. They're just like really like fucking paupers out there,
Bleeding.
What I actually think is going to happen is now that the big push to GA4 has happened, there hasn't really been anybody in the space who's created a user-friendly, digestible analytics platform that competes with Google Analytics in any real form. I think now we're going to see a couple of companies come to light that are going to solve for it and make it there's a lot of companies creating these tracking scripts now that can do some pretty deep dive stuff. Somebody's going to roll up a platform here, I bet, very quickly, and it's already probably out there, that's going to solve for a lot of this.
Have you heard of a Snowplow?
Yep.
Yeah, so we have that implemented on that.
See, I think Snowplow is awesome on your end.
What is it?
Snowplow.
Snowplow?
Yeah. And it's open source software, but they also have a hosted version of it. So if you don't feel like screwing around with it on your own, you can just use their services and they'll do everything for you. It's kind of expensive, but it's not as expensive as what Google used to charge you, like what is it, $250,000 a year to set something. And with that, you get to collect any data you want. You can create your own custom events. It's fully customizable.
Again, though, that is enterprise level, like software developer platform. That is not that's not a MailChimp of analytics, right? That's not a super easy.
It's complicated.
So Steve and Kevin, have you guys used Google Optimize to run A/B test?
I have a little bit.
Okay. So Google Optimize is a sweet little tool that nobody really takes advantage of. Yep. Just for you listening, what Google Optimize does is it runs on your front end, and it's just a plugin script, but you can make changes to your site and run A/B tests on them. So let's say you wanted to like test a headline on one of your high converting pages. Well, you can run an A/B test using Google Optimize and test that. And typically what we'll do is look at analytics and we'll see which pages have bounce rate issues or load time on site that should, be doing better. And then we'll take that data and then we'll run the A/B test. But you can A/B test photos, text, different elements. I mean, there's a lot of code, different codes, different links. You can do whatever you want. And you can run like multivariant tests where you can, instead of just like an A/B test, you can test like 5 different variations, run it for a month, and then it will spit out, it'll tell you if it's a winner or not. So you can run up to, I think you can run up to 10 experiments at a time. But there's somewhat of a science to running experiments. Like you don't want to run too many at the same time because they might conflict with each other and make, and not give you the right results. But very cool tool. It's free. I recommend checking out.
And you can you can change certain things on your website right from Google Optimize. So you don't really need to, change the code of your website. You can just log into Google Optimize and make whatever changes you need, and they will run right away on your website, which is really cool.
Well, I have a very strong feeling that our bounce rate on this show, when you guys come to when you learn about Google Analytics, I feel like the bounce rate on the show, you'll learn what that means. It's going to be probably 90% when they do realize that this show is not about Grand Theft Auto 4. And with that, guys, we appreciate you guys listening. Big thanks to Alex Benko. Big thanks to Steve Edwards, my main Kimosabi, Greg Fisher, and always your homie, your boy, Kevin O'Neill at Awkward Watersports Guys. And as always, you fucking keep it awkward, you sexy motherfuckers.